I'm Mark Ryan. This is Super Review, and this is the Elysian Acoustic Labs Cross Effect Audio Pilgrim Noir. It's another one of those Kingdom Hearts IEMs. No, this is just a collaboration between Elysian Acoustic Labs and Effect Audio to release a different version of the Pilgrim. What's different about it exactly? Let's talk about it. So not too long ago, maybe a month ago or so, I reviewed this. This is the original Elysian Acoustic Labs Pilgrim. It's a $400 IEM, and it's pretty standout in the fact that this company typically makes much more expensive stuff. So at 400 bucks, having a nice little entry-level model, that's what made this thing kind of cool. Now, the Pilgrim Noir is, again, a collab version that is no longer quite budget. It would still be the cheapest IEM that Elysian makes, but it's 800 bucks. So it's basically double the price of this guy. And what exactly do you get for double the price? Well, let's see if we can figure it out. So I'm just going to pull up this is Hi-Fi Go's page describing it. It is co-tuned in collaboration with Effect Audio. Yep. It's got an upgraded 4-way frequency crossover. It's got hyper-core twin thrust module, who knows what that is, undamped Knowles BA driver, and many more features that make it a truly upgraded set. Now, I apologize if I sound a little bit sarcastic there. I really don't mean to be. But I was actually genuinely confused and unclear on what was different about the Noir versus the original. What makes it $400 more expensive? And so I've been curious to hear this thing. And a special shout out to fellow IEM reviewer Jadis, who was kind enough to loan me his personal unit. And for the past couple weeks, I've been living with this guy, listening to the Noir, comparing it to the original. I'm ready to let you know what I think. Now, quick disclaimer on this review. We're not going to dive into the accessories, the build, the fit, form, all that stuff. At least not so much. Where it's different, it will be. Just because we've already talked about the Pilgrim. And it's not that different here with the Noir. It's a different color scheme. The accessories are now black instead of white. And it does have a new cable. So we'll talk about the new cable. But otherwise, mostly I just wanted to talk about how this thing is different versus this one. Because for 400 bucks, I feel like people ought to know. And there are some official graphs floating around out there. I'll be honest, I saw those official graphs and there was some stuff about them that didn't quite seem right. And based on my graphs, I think I like my graphs better. But anyway, all right, anything else we need to talk about? No, so this is an $800 IEM. It's still the same driver configuration, 3 BAs, 1 dynamic driver. Again, they've got something different with the crossovers ostensibly. And the tuning is different, although we'll talk about exactly how different it is because it's just a smidge different. And yeah, let's just go ahead and let's talk about this cable first of all. All right, this is one of the big differences between the Noir and the original is not just that it's a black cable, all right, but you can see that it's a pretty different construction. Let's punch in on that so you can take a look. So this is the cable on the original Pilgrim. This is the Noir. Noir means black. It's a black cable. Now, it's a little bit more than just a black cable because this is specifically an Effect Audio cable. And if you're not familiar with the brand Effect Audio, they are typically known for making kind of high-end premium IEM cables. Not so much IEMs, although they do make a couple of IEMs as well. And this is kind of, this is pretty much what their cables look like. I'm not a big cable memes kind of guy, all right? Here's what I can say about this cable. In terms of the effect that it has on the sound, it should be negligible. I did measure the impedance of this cable versus some other cables, and it is lower than your average impedance on a cable, but all the cables I'm measuring are like below half an ohm of impedance, below an ohm for sure. And at that point, you're not really going to have much of an effect on the sound, at least not as far as I'm concerned. Now, apart from that, what else can we say about the cable? I can say that the behavior on the braid is quite nice. I like this. It reminds me a lot actually of the cable that came with the IO Volare, which is another IEM that I reviewed recently. And I like the cable on the Volare so much that I actually ended up putting that on my favorite IEM, which is the 7th Acoustic Supernova. So generally pretty happy with the behavior and the feel of it. This one does seem to be a little bit extra kinky versus the one that came with the Volare, but I'm not sure if it's just this copy or what. The hardware in this guy. All right, the Y split is a little bit on the chonky side, but not so bad. I think the part about this that I actually like the least is this gold flake. My legit first reaction to that gold flake was I thought that there was some sort of gold print that had been wearing off. So I don't know, it just feels a little bit random to me personally, but I don't, maybe that's your jam. And then there is a chin cinch, which is more or less functional, but also I'm not really a big fan of this. This is a thing that Effect Audio does pretty commonly with their cables from what I've seen. It's just like this flat plate that moves up and down and it stays in place for the most part. I just don't really like that it tilts back and forth, and that seems super, super picky, and I understand that, but I don't know, for what's effectively a $400 cable, I don't love it, I'll be honest. And then up top, it's the same deal as the cable on the original Pilgrim. It is using these IPX connectors, which you probably don't have a lot of IEMs that have IPX connectors. Well, maybe you do, I don't. And because of that, this cable is not super compatible with all my other IEMs, and vice versa. This IEM is not compatible with all my other cables, but some people like the IPX connector, so there you go. All right, let's talk about the sound. Let's focus on the sound. I don't want to talk too much about the form factor. Here we go. This is my frequency response graph of the Elysian Pilgrim Noir, and then here you can compare it with my graph of the original Pilgrim. And did you notice that difference? Because it's pretty minor. Let's pull them up at the same time, and you can see that in my frequency response measurement, there's a little bit of difference here in the upper mid range, maybe some difference in the treble, but really you're kind of splitting hairs. This is a difference that could honestly be described by just unit variation to some degree, but I will say in listening experience, they are more different than typical unit variation. So I don't want to say that that's what's going on here. But what I will say is that there's a lot less difference here in my frequency response graphs versus the originals. And my explanation for that would be, even when I looked at the official frequency response graphs, it seemed to me obvious that they had not aligned the resonance peak when they measured both of the IEMs. So because of that, it's going to make the top end measure pretty significantly different. Whereas if you do align the resonance peak, you get graphs that look pretty similar. But there is a little bit of difference here in the upper mid range. And I guess what I wanted to say is that I hear that difference. Let me close out this graph and let's just focus on the Noir and just my listening impressions on this guy. All right, so versus the original Pilgrim, I would say that the Noir does come across a little bit more relaxed and sort of like the vocal region. And if you remember kind of my take on the original Pilgrim, it was that I felt like it was a little bit nerfed versus what I heard at Can Jam, which was just a lot more exciting, lively set that was made a much safer tune here in the production version of the Pilgrim, but also kind of took out some of that fun factor. Now here with the Noir, I feel like that relaxation is taking even a step further, maybe a half a step further, but it is taking a little bit further. So the direction that this is from what I preferred is even further away from what I preferred here on the Noir, but I do actually think that this is better done. There's something, it's actually kind of interesting. So that difference in the tonality, what that means to my ear is that I actually feel like the original Pilgrim does a better job with that stereo separation. A wider sense of a stereo image in my head playing out with the music because it's just a little bit brighter and livelier. And even though it's less bright and lively versus the one that I heard before. Anyway, so I wouldn't say that that's necessarily where the Noir excels. And I was kind of expecting, honestly, the Noir to be even warmer and bassier, I suppose. But in listening impressions, bass levels seem pretty similar. This does just come across a little bit more laid back, a little bit warmer, but it's very, very slight. The bigger difference that I hear between them is actually comes across in like the texturing, which is interesting. I wouldn't say it's a massive difference. If you heard this guy and you heard this guy and you didn't hear them back to back, I would not be surprised if you thought they were the same IEM, I'll be honest, but listening to them back to back, as I had the opportunity to do, this one did come across a little bit better textured in like the vocal region, and even things like in guitars and stuff like that. Just like they felt a little bit more guttural and a little bit more satisfying because of that, I'll be honest. So I do slightly prefer the Noir version just because it's a little bit more of its own thing. Like it's a little bit more opinionated, whereas the original Pilgrim is just it's kind of safe. And it's not to say that the Noir version isn't also pretty safe. Like, I don't think anyone's going to be, no one's going to be struggling with the treble on this guy. No one's going to think this thing's like too bassy and like overwhelming. It's just, it is kind of like a middle of the road safe tuning. It's just a little bit more opinionated and a little bit more flavorful. And because of that, I kind of like it a little bit better. But yeah, we're going to keep this guy short. That's all I'm going to say about the Pilgrim Noir, but I will give it a review or a score. Out of 5 stars, look, I like it a little bit better than the Pilgrim, which I gave 3 stars, but this thing does cost twice as much. So comparing it versus some other IEMs at around $800, I'd still say this guy is solid. 3-star IEM. If you want to check it out, I've got it linked in the description down below. But while you're down there, if you haven't already, please do hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and check out Jadis's channel. I've got him linked down below as well. Again, shout out to Jadis for loaning me these IEMs. But otherwise, I'll catch you on the next super review. Cheers.
Join with the force of reviews, we now have the tools to brave the misleading world of audio fools. Hey, this review is super, and so are you. Grab your headphones, sniff a graph, and share your thoughts in this pursuit.